Welcome back to my second part of the Shadow Commentary series. Now, for this one, we're going to be looking at Charnlucky. Let's begin.
The Sonic the Hedgehog series is one that's been extremely inconsistent in terms of quality over the past 2 decades. Personally, for each entry in the series that I love, there's always another that I hate or I'm just indifferent to.
Yeah, I wouldn't really say it's mixed in terms of actual quality as much as it just keeps changing the formula, and some people prefer one formula to the other. Now, I know it went by kinda quick, but the main thing I wanted you to note is that he put Black Knight as one of the good ones. That is the one where Sonic has a sword. Now keep this in mind for a little bit later.
But out of all the games in the Sonic franchise, there's one game that stands out to me as the biggest mistake in the entire series, and that game's Shadow the Hedgehog. So Shadow the Hedgehog was Sega's attempt to make the Sonic series appeal to a more older and mature audience. And did it work? Well, the sound effect whenever you make a selection is a gunshot, so clearly this game is hardcore and edgy.
No, I wouldn't say it was to make it for older audiences, more or less just to have it appeal still to kids. I mean, keep in mind, most kids like games like Call of Duty. If you need proof, just go onto Xbox Live.
So the game starts off with the usual Sonic shtick, the corny rock song from Crush 40, a nicely animated cutscene setting the overall mood of the game. And what is the mood of the game, you may ask? Well, Shadow has a gun. Yeah, the character from the light-hearted franchise about a group of talking animals and a mad fat scientist is packing heat.
As I said earlier, you put Black Knight on the good list. Now, I like that game as well, but that's the one where Sonic has a sword, so please let me know, what's your excuse there?
I needn't explain why this is so stupid, it should speak for itself. Also, Shadow has a motorbike. Wasn't this thing supposed to be that he's fast on foot? What does he need a motorbike for?
It's because you don't take damage when you're riding on a motorcycle?
This opening is so hardcore and edgy, it's downright cringeworthy. I mean, some of it's pretty cool, like the use of Shadow's chaos powers, but guns, soldiers, a beaten and bruised Sonic collapsing, is this really necessary? No, it isn't, but I'll get into why that is later.
Let me guess, early 90s nostalgia? Or just nostalgia for the quote-unquote good old days?
Anyway, on with the story mode.
Shadow the Hedgehog. Why does that name haunt me? It's the only thing I can remember. And that gruesome image.
Okay, so Shadow has amnesia, again, and the only thing he remembers is Maria's death, which he came to terms with at the end of Sonic Adventure 2. So he's pretty much going through the exact same character arc as he did in Sonic Adventure 2.
Well, he has amnesia, so there's that. And considering that most people don't like change, well, there you go. However, I'll let you try to find the irony for yourself.
Which seems pretty redundant, but hey, there's aliens involved this time, so it's different. And of course these aliens want Shadow to
find the 7 Chaos Emeralds.
Which is actually a little odd, considering Shadow agreed to help the aliens in exchange for finding out about his past. Even though he could simply ask literally any other character in the game, but
no, the other Sonic characters don't really know anything about him. All they know is that he was supposed to be some scientific project, and that was already explained.
I don't know, I guess Shadow's a tad shy. So after this extremely basic setup for a story, we can get into the gameplay and, well, you know how Sonic 06 is bashed for having extremely precise controls? Well, at least that game had better controls than this slippery mess. Shadow moves way too fast and there is no build-up of momentum. As soon as you push that analog stick, you're at top speed and there's no way to maneuver around all the randomly placed obstacles in your way without...
No, I'd say the controls just take time to get used to. And no, that does not make them bad, that just means you have to adjust your mindset when playing that game. It's very much common for just about every game that it wasn't made in the NES era.
Coming to a screeching halt, killing any speed that you spent all of 1 second building up.
So why is this a problem? It's not like in Sonic 1 where one little mistake can kill all your speed and it takes forever to get up a small slope.
One of the main gimmicks of this game is the morality system. In the first level we have 3 missions to choose from. The hero mission is to help Sonic beat all of the aliens, the dark mission is to beat all of the soldiers for Black Doom, and the neutral mission is to, of course,
get those Chaos Emeralds.
Since this is a Sonic game, the most natural form of progression is to go from point A to point B, but I guess it's kinda cool having Sonic as a partner character, so I could give alien hunting a try. The other gimmick of this game is the guns. Why did a Sonic game ever need guns?
Simple, because this game was more about Shadow, and they wanted to give him a layer of identity. So it doesn't just feel like you're just playing Sonic Adventure, well, more Sonic Heroes, just with a reskinned character, and in addition to that, the guns do drain the enemy's life bars much quicker than the basic attacks.
I get it, it's a spin-off, things are going to be different, but you still collect rings, run through loops, find Chaos Emeralds, and the story is directly linked to Sonic Adventure 2. This is a Sonic the Hedgehog game, and guns do not fit with these characters in this universe.
Well, as you can tell, we're clearly dealing with a guy who really knows what he's talking about. It's pretty obvious he's played tons of Sonic games, and that he's paid very close attention to the characters and weapons that they use.
Admittedly, the guns aren't terrible to use, the auto-aim works decently enough, and it's always fun to do some 360 no-scopes. The only problem is that the lock-on is automatic, meaning it's easy to accidentally shoot your allies rather than your enemies, and the same goes for the homing attack.
Wait, why is that bad? You didn't really explain it. I mean, I do like the lock-on feature for the gun since it makes it easy to hit enemies, but some weapons like the rocket launcher you don't get an aiming system because it sacrifices aim for power.
Anyway, you have these hero and dart gauge at the top of the screen, and for killing enough aliens to get to use some sort of special move. Wait, no, Shadow, stop! That's too face.
Could you please show at least some respect to your audience's ears and not play that song?
Okay, so by killing all the aliens, I get rewarded with the ability to skip all the aliens that I'm supposed to be killing. That is so stupid, just forget it, I'm just gonna stick to doing the neutral mission for this.
Well, you could use the infinite ammo and invincibility that you get in standby mode.
Level, I'll do the hero mission in the next one.
Hey, Shadow! You saw him too, didn't you? Those black creatures floating around here? Time to clean house and do a little exterminating.
You've got to be kidding me. I have to kill all the aliens again. That is the same mission I just got done with. Oh, just screw it. I'm just going to stick with a neutral path for now.
Okay, just out of curiosity, why the neutral path? I mean, the dark path is pretty easy. You just go, find the jewels, and touch them. It's not that hard.
Dead end.
Okay, Knuckles, watch the potty mouth. Oh yeah, Sonic Team really went the extra mile to make this game edgy. If the guns weren't enough to convince you this game is super mature, then maybe a few minor cuss words will convince you that this is a game for adults, because nothing is more mature than guns, swearing, and Charmy the Bee. Was this really necessary? Just throwing in random naughty words for the sake of heightening the game's age rating? That doesn't make it more mature, it's just gosh darn pathetic and makes the game seem a lot more immature.
I do agree that that doesn't make it more mature, however it does have a side effect of making it incredibly funny.
If there's one thing that really irritates me about this game, it's that it's just plain exhausting to play. The level design is so bland and uninteresting, filled with hallways, generic platforming, and enemies that are a chore to fight. But at least the voice performances are funny.
Shadow? Android? Am I an android too?
I am really not one to dwell on voice acting, especially in a Sonic game, but wow, it does not get much worse than that.
Are you the original?
I spoke too soon.
Okay, first off, the platforming, you don't really go into that much depth. Just saying bland doesn't really get a good idea, and considering you're doing this kind of Let's Play style, it really doesn't make you sound all that credible, because you haven't really played a lot of the levels. Second, what was wrong with the Omega voice? It sounds just like the one in Heroes.
And again, nothing interesting happens in this level. Even the boss fight and the level after it are just plain bland and uninteresting. Level design is some of the most dull I've ever seen in any Sonic game, or any 3D platformer in general. Also, it doesn't help that Omega is still talking throughout the next 3 levels of the game.
What about the other levels? There are multiple paths, and as such, there are quite a few levels. Or, oh please, don't tell me this is going to be one of those reviews. You know, one of those ones that only play a few levels and then just try to judge the whole game based on that alone.
But at long last, I've reached the final boss.
You're going straight to hell!
Ooh, snap, so edgy. My god, this game is such a try-hard it physically hurts. I get that Sega want to appeal to an older audience, but do they really think that teenagers and adults are actually impressed by this? Yeah, I understand they need to make the series mature along with its audience, but didn't they already do that back in Sonic Adventure 2? Yeah, SA2 was a pretty mature game. It had a somewhat complex plot, backstory, high stakes, more drama, more intense situations. Sonic Adventure 2 may be far from perfect, but that game shows how you make a game franchise feel a little more mature. You don't need to artificially increase your age rating just so your game doesn't seem like it's made just for babies.
Okay, first off, you already mentioned this thing about the whole maturity and all that. 2, the whole Sonic Adventure 2 is far from perfect really wasn't necessary. Also, don't show Pumpkin Hill if you're trying to show a flaw. Show something like Matt's Base, FYI. Oh, and for the rest of the review, it's pretty much just the same thing, just he complains about a level being bland. The most I could really say is the arc levels, which I do agree, though the one thing that I kind of disagree on is the whole circus level. It's a fun level, but he mostly just talks about how it's great because it has color and looks like the old Sonic games. But that's really all I have to say. I spent a while deciding whether I should skip this or not, and I decided to ultimately skip it just because it would just be me repeating myself. So anyway, let's continue.
So, and the final boss is Black Doom, and this is a boss that I never really had much trouble with. He's a kind of run-of-the-mill, easy boss. But in my most recent playthrough of this game to record this footage, I was so burned out and tired and just bored by this game. So I'm just done playing it. If I keep going, I'm probably just going to keel over and die.
Just so you know, not finishing the game doesn't really make you look all that credible.
But even though I'm done playing there, that doesn't mean this game doesn't have way more flaws that I've not covered yet. For example, this game has 10 endings, and you're required to get all of them to 100% the game, meaning you have to play Westopolis 10 times.
Considering that there are 3 options you can take, it's really not that bad, and it's a pretty decent practice point to get you used to everything that the game has to offer.
In none of the endings do you get to join Dr. Eggman. As I previously mentioned, at the end of Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow dies, so this game should serve to explain why he's inexplicably alive again, right? Nope, you don't get to find out how he came back to life until you stall the final boss for 10 minutes, so that Eggman can give you the most unimaginative, lazy reasoning ever.
But I rescued you with one of my robots!
The other thing that could have explained is why the Ark travesty happened, but then again, the whole story was kind of pointless, but to be fair, I don't really play this game for the story, I play it for the game. Also, you're focusing a lot on the story.
This game's multiplayer sucks.
I spent about 10 minutes just calling all the levels bland. Let's move on to multiplayer. It sucks.
This game was apparently too edgy for Big the Cat, as the man, the myth, the legend himself makes no appearance in this game.
Last I checked, people hated Big, and don't say it was a joke because he seems to be putting these in order of importance, and apparently Big is more important than what comes next.
When you beat the Dark storyline, you don't get to fight Sonic, you get to duke it out with Sonic and a giant robot for some reason. This game has no mention of the romance between Shadow and Shrek.
You already ruined your audience ears with the Sonic X theme. Don't ruin their eyes with that as well.
But let's forget all of that for one moment. Never mind the story or the controls or the tedious gameplay, because none of that really matters when it comes down to the real reason I think this is the worst game in the franchise. The reason this game is so terrible just comes down to the basic premise. Shadow carrying around a gun, swearing and riding motorbikes through an alien apocalypse.
You heard it here. The gameplay and all that matters absolutely nothing if he does not like its premise. Well, knowing most of the Sonic fanbase, let's see if he'll use the same half-assed reasoning as everyone else does.
This game is trying to be everything that Sonic is not, and you can say that's fine because this is a spin-off, but as I've already mentioned, this has all the regular Sonic tropes and characters, so it isn't a spin-off, this is a Sonic game.
Yep, I was right, and much like everyone else who uses this argument, he's blissfully unaware that pretty much the entire gimmick of the Sonic series as a whole was to offer an alternative to Mario, and to be fair, when the 90s were around, the early 90s, the big bright and cartoony stuff was the popular thing, and the only reason it's coming back is because the people with the disposable income are pretty much just trying to relive their childhoods forever. this is the real reason why people hate games like Shadow in 06. It's very much less for gameplay and just for apparently a, quote, kick to the face to their childhood, or as I like to call it, their nostalgia.
I'm all for trying to make the Sonic series more mature, but giving the characters firearms and potty mouths is not the way to do it. If anything, this one-dimensional representation of maturity makes the game a laughingstock. Do you want to know what I think makes a mature game? It's not the age rating on the box, it's not the amount of swear words or the violence or the realism. In my eyes, a mature game is just a game that's made by mature people who know exactly what their game is and doesn't shy away from it. If a game wants to be colourful and cartoony, then it's colourful and cartoony. If a game wants to be silly and over the top, then it's silly and over the top. And if a game wants to be serious and realistic, then that's what it is. But when a game seems to be embarrassed of the series that it's a part of, like in the case of Shadow the Hedgehog, rather than embracing the franchise it's a part of and trying to build upon it and improve it, it takes itself way too seriously and tries too hard to appeal to the Grand Theft Auto and Halo crowd. And those games are fine, but making Sonic try to emulate their success just completely detaches this game from the universe around it.
And that's why we have haunted house levels and circus levels. Okay, I know I skipped those parts to save time because they were really repetitive and really amounted to nothing, but come on, you showed it! And you were even showing levels in that clip show. How did you not realize that? It's not embarrassed of it, it pretty much has fun with itself. It's very much like a parody.
Making this whole game seem immensely out of place, and is, in my opinion, the game that really started and defined the so-called Dark Age of Sonic. And that's why Shadow the Hedgehog sucks poop.
Further cementing my theory that the only reason people hate those games are mostly just because it's not like their childhood, or at least what they imagine their childhood is like. So, final thoughts. This was a really big chore. The big problem is he goes through it like this bizarre Let's Play style, so much, and it really drags on. This kind of style could maybe work if it was short, or at the very least, if he's just going to give blunt statements, at least make it just a few minutes long, not 18. But anyway, like I said, this was a pretty poor review, and it really doesn't amount to much. The guy really hammers in tone, and as a result, it doesn't really feel right. It's a pretty poor review of the game, and it really just seems like he's just bashing it just because he's mad because, you know, his nostalgia for old-style Sonic games. But anyway, what were your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. You have a wonderful evening.